Hey, good evening. Trader Tim, eminimine.com here. Tomorrow is going to be a big day in the markets. After today's price action, it's kind of a make or break day. We have this hammer that formed, and the reason that's important is because we dipped below yesterday's low, and buyers pushed the market back up to right about yesterday's high. And if tomorrow we cannot break today's high, if instead we come down and break this low down here of 2700, then I would definitely be looking for a larger pullback, something towards the 2667. That's not a huge pullback, but it's definitely a breakdown from this bull flag. Now, the one exception is if we form another hammer tomorrow. Let's say we break today's low and then close up at highs, forming another hammer. But if we look at the S&P, we can see it's been a solid week, 7-8 days of moving sideways. And if we look at markets like the Dow, you can see very clear sort of left side of a cup or a little bit of a pullback. The Russell, pretty clear, strong uptrend, and the hammer is much more pronounced. Good volume on the move up. And so I would want to see some follow through. That's really why tomorrow is so important, because it indicates are traders going to step in and push the market higher, or let today's price action of moving up, closing in the hammer, just kind of let that dissipate and fall apart. Now, tomorrow we have, let's see, consumer sentiment in the morning and Jerome Powell speaking. So those are two pretty powerful uh, indicators, if you will. The consumer sentiment indicator, but then Jerome Powell speaking. The last couple of times he spoke, the markets have moved off of that, kind of reacted to what he's been saying. So keep your eyes on that tomorrow morning. One thing I wanted to talk about, specific trade setup from yesterday. So if we go back to Wednesday, not too long after we opened, we rallied here a little bit in the morning. We kind of came up right to Tuesday's low. And uh, whenever we fill a gap like that, where we had gapped down on Wednesday and then we rallied, and then as soon as we touched the low from the previous day, kind of filling that space, I'm always looking for potential trades. And just as if we, gapped up, let's say tomorrow we gap up and then we start to sell off, I'd be looking for a potential trade or a long setup at today's close, at the gap fill. And so on Wednesday, we had not just this touch of Tuesday's low, where we formed this high on the morning, but we also had a high tick, a high nicey tick at highs. And if we come back, I think it was right about 7:15. Yeah, 7:14 and 7:14. High tick of the day at that point in the morning, and then a high price of the day. And so what I will do is draw up the first retracement setup after that high tick forms. So using that high as an anchor, just coming down and waiting until we pull back to the 50%, and we did that here at 27.1950s, and we had a pretty nice short that took us. If all you did is, if you're trading two contracts using that negative 23% target for your first contract, and then trailing swing highs on the way down on your second, you're taking about 3 points on the first contract, 2.5 points or so, kind of getting that small profit, reducing your risk. Then as you trail your stop on the way down, you end up getting taken out at about 27.12s So you take out another 7 points there. That's just shy of 10 points with two contracts, and you're only risking 3 points. A point and a half per contract. So pretty good reward to risk. Very clear setup at a very key level. So if you just kind of come into the day with a few notes written down, or a few key levels written down, yesterday's close, yesterday's high and low, maybe the prior major swing low. So like going into tomorrow, I would make a note of today's low and high, 575 and a 3050. And then this swing low back here, 2750s. And then this high, 2741.75. Those are kind of my lines in the sand. And if we start breaking any of those, or if we trade to any of those levels, that's when I really want to be paying attention and making sure that I'm looking for high ticks at highs and low ticks at lows and a change in trend. And so you want to be uh, very focused, and in addition to just limiting your time that you're in front of the screen to a couple of hours each day and being focused in that time, kind of coming into the day with a handful of levels written down that you can kind of keep your eye on is very helpful. Now, I like to just use a post-it note, and I've got a post-it note and legal pad in front of me rather than drawing a bunch of lines on the chart, because we can sometimes trick ourselves to thinking, well, I've got this line drawn here, price is going to stop there. And I don't have a problem with using the Fibonacci levels, drawing those up, but you'll notice I only have the 50, the 61, and the negative 23. I don't have all of the lines, all the Fibonacci levels up. I'm just kind of keeping it as simple as possible so that I'm not distracted by, my own addition to the chart and to the data. So that's definitely a setup that I see you know, pretty common. A high ticket highs, a low ticket lows. You might get a couple of those each week, and so it's a really good thing to look out for, because the move off of that high can be pretty substantial. Taking out 6 or 7 points in a quick move. So this was 7:15 to about, we'll just call it 8 o'clock. So 45 minutes, 10 points with just two contracts. That's a pretty good, um, sizable gain. And you don't notice how you're not necessarily, you know, placing a trade, uh, closing out the trade, putting on a new trade. If you were to take every single retracement here, you'd be putting on a trade and then closing out the trade and then taking your profit and then putting on a new trade, and then every time you put in a new trade, you're opening up new risk. And so to try and combat that, that's why trailing your stop is so powerful. So I hope you find that helpful. And again, tomorrow, big day in the markets. I really want to see some follow through off of today so we can finally kind of lift up and break this 2752s. That's kind of been that bigger level above us that we need to punch through if we're gonna gain some real serious traction to the upside. I hope everyone has a great holiday weekend. Markets closed on Monday, and we will talk to everyone on Tuesday in the live trading room Tuesday morning. Thanks, everyone, and we'll talk to you soon.